G'day guys, Ryan Pickles here, and on this episode of Pickels Pickles we're going to be fermenting milk into yogurt. A yogurt was actually the first thing I ever fermented, mainly because I eat a lot of it and I figured I'd save myself some money by making it myself. It's really easy to prepare, but it takes a fair bit of time, so let's get going. Today I'm going to use 2 litres of milk. You can use more or less milk depending on how much yogurt you want to end up with. In terms of type of milk, you can really use whatever you like. You can use low fat if you prefer, but if you're like me and you're all about that thick boy life, then you're better off using full cream. And as you can see, I'm using milk with both the A1 and the A2 protein because I've got complete disregard for my health and I haven't really realised yet that A2 milk is magic and A1 is apparently poison. Now with respect to your yogurt, try to find one without a lot of additives like thickeners because that can affect the quality of your final product. But the most important thing is to get one with live cultures because you're going to be using the bacteria from the yogurt to inoculate the milk and let it ferment. So we'll take our milk and pour it into a saucepan. Then we just place it over a medium to high heat and stir it constantly until the milk's about 88 degrees Celsius. Now it's a good idea to have a little thermometer that you can just pop in your milk and that way you'll be able to keep track of the temperature. So the reason that we heat the milk up to this temperature is that it actually denatures or changes the shape of the whey proteins in the milk, which is actually necessary for it to end up thickening into a yogurt. Now it's important to keep stirring the milk constantly, especially when it's hot, otherwise you'll end up with little bits of burnt milk at the bottom of the pan. So as you can see, we're at about 88 degrees with our milk. So we'll take it off the heat and we'll keep stirring while we let it cool back down to about 44 degrees. Now unfortunately it can take a fair bit of time for the milk to cool down to that temperature and I don't particularly feel like spending my entire day stirring milk, so I like to give it a little bit of a helping hand. So I'll pop some ice into a bowl and fill it up with water. And then I'll take the saucepan and just put it in the ice bath until it reaches 44 degrees. If all the ice melts and the milk's still a little bit warm, you can always put it in the fridge, but just keep an eye on it so it doesn't get too cold. So once the milk is 44 degrees, it's at the optimum temperature to add the yogurt to inoculate it with our bacteria. So I like to strain the milk into a bowl first, just to remove any little lumps or burnt milk that may have happened in the heating process. And take 1 tablespoon of yogurt per litre of milk, so in this case 2 tablespoons. And then take about a cup of the warm milk out and add it to the yogurt. And then gently mix it together until it becomes a thick liquid and add it back to your milk. Lastly, just give it a gentle stir to combine. Now each yogurt's going to have different bacterial cultures in it. Some of the common bacteria are Streptococcus thermophilus and Lactobacillus bulgaricus. So now we've added our bacteria to our milk, which is the perfect environment for its growth. It's got sugars in the form of lactose, it's nice and warm, and so now we've just got to give it some time for the bacteria to proliferate through the milk and ferment it. So I'll cover it up and I'll leave it for at least 6 hours, usually a bit longer, like 8 to 12, and that's just to make sure that the bacteria have plenty of time to do their job and ferment the yogurt. Now one of the most important ways to support this process is by keeping the yogurt in a nice warm place while it ferments. That way it doesn't go getting too cold and slowing down the fermentation. So if it's hot where you are, it's probably fine to keep it out on the counter, but if it's cold or you want to control the temperature a little bit better, I'll show you what I do. So all I do is I just turn the oven light on without the heat, and so that light's just going to provide a tiny little bit of warmth, and the oven will provide an insulated environment to keep the yogurt at the right temperature. And so I just put the yogurt inside. So while we're waiting for our yogurt to ferment, the bacteria are converting the lactose in the milk into lactic acid. Now this does 2 very important things. The first thing it does is it gives the yogurt its characteristic tangy flavour. And the second thing it does is that as the milk becomes more acidic, the acid will denature or change the shape of the casein proteins, and that allows them to reassemble to form the thick, semi-solid texture that we know as yogurt. Alright, so I've given the milk about 9 hours to ferment, so it should have well and truly had enough time to turn into yogurt. Alright, so yeah, you can see that our bowl of what was some pretty runny milk has turned into a thick, pretty solid amalgamation of yogurt. And that liquid that you can see collecting on the top there, that's the whey separating itself out from the yogurt. Now later on in the video, we're going to be straining even more of this whey out to turn our yogurt into Greek yogurt. So to help the yogurt set even further, it's a good idea to cover it and refrigerate it for at least another 6 hours. So I'm going to pop it in the fridge overnight, then I'll come back tomorrow and complete the process. So since I refrigerated my yogurt overnight, it should well and truly have had enough time to set and solidify. And so what you've got here is a pretty good volume of yogurt. Now if you want, you could actually stop here and eat the yogurt as it is, but it's going to be a little bit runny and it's also going to be pretty sweet. Now I prefer Greek yogurt. It's thicker, it's tangier, it's also got a fair bit less sugar, and all you have to do to change yogurt to Greek yogurt is strain out some of the whey. And so for that you'll need some kind of cloth with pores in it, and that'll allow the whey to strain through but leave the yogurt intact. So I found this muslin cloth at a fabric store, and it's just full of these tiny little holes which make it perfect for straining. Cheesecloth is used pretty commonly as well, but keep in mind that if you're using cheesecloth, especially if the holes are large, it's best to use a few different layers. I mean, the more layers you use, the longer it'll take to strain, but also the less yogurt you're going to lose through those big holes. So this is the bowl I'm going to use to collect all the whey that we strain out from the yogurt. So I like to take a metal strainer and just pop it over the top. Next I'll just fold over the cloth into a double layer and just line the bottom. Then I'll just add my yogurt. Then I'll cover it in cling wrap and then put it back in the fridge while we wait for it to strain. And then every half an hour or so I'll take it out, give the yogurt a bit of a stir and check it to see if we've strained out enough whey. So after half an hour you can already see that the whey is beginning to collect at the bottom of the bowl, and the more we remove, the more liquid and sugar we remove from our yogurt, so our yogurt becomes thicker and less sweet. So at this point I'll open up my yogurt. So I'll give the yogurt a bit of a stir just to disturb any thick bits that are stuck at the bottom of the cloth. And so it's important to check your yogurt as you go along until you get the consistency and taste that you're looking for. Now you can see how this is still pretty runny. I like my yogurt to be a bit thicker, and it usually takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours of straining to get it to that point. And some of you might be thinking, but Pickles, the whey's where all the protein is. Why are you straining away your gains? You might be surprised to learn that the protein content in whey is actually pretty minimal. It's only about 0.5%. So to make just 1 scoop of protein powder, you actually need at least 7 litres of whey. So the protein concentration in the yogurt is going to be heaps higher the more whey we take out. So now that I've strained my yogurt for a while, it's at about the right consistency and taste that I'm looking for. So then all you need to do is transfer your finished product into a clean container and put it in the fridge. And there's no need to throw away your cloth, just rinse it out and dry it and you can reuse it next time. In the fridge, the yogurt should last up to about 2 weeks. Now if you're going to be making some more yogurt at that time, it's a good idea to put a couple of tablespoons of yogurt aside, and you can use that as a starter culture for your next batch. And every time I make yogurt, I'm faced with the same question, and that's what to do with all of the leftover whey. And it's actually that question that ended up kickstarting my interest in fermentation. As I mentioned before, I was eating heaps of yogurt, so I started making my own to save some money and pass the time. And as a result, I ended up with heaps and heaps of whey that I had to try to find a use for. Now, just like yogurt, whey is actually full of a whole bunch of different bacteria, including lactobacillus, and it turns out you can use it as a starter culture for fermenting vegetables like sauerkraut. So I thought to myself, hey, maybe I should make some sauerkraut. And the sauerkraut led to kimchi, which led to pickles, which led to hot sauce. And just like that, the fermenting bugs started to proliferate. So yeah, you can add a couple of tablespoons of whey to the vegetables you're fermenting, and the dose of bacteria can kind of help kickstart the fermentation. I've stopped doing that myself, mainly because by using the natural bacteria that are on the vegetable to begin with, you tend to get a bit of a better flavor profile overall, but more on that in another video. Other uses for whey include putting it in smoothies or protein shakes. Apparently you can also use it in baking or to boil rice, but I haven't done that before. Anyway, that's how you make homemade yogurt. It does take a fair bit of time, but it's super easy to make, it's pretty cheap, and it's relatively healthy. Tastes really good, and as you can see, the consistency is perfect. Well, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos as they come out, and let me know in the comments what you want to see me make next. And I'll see you next time on Pickles Pickles.